Imagine a hidden language woven into the very fabric of existence, a blueprint for everything, from the smallest cell to the grandest pyramid. Today, we're embarking on a truly unique, deep dive into that language. Sacred geometry. This isn't just about shapes and angles. It's the profound belief that the entire universe was created according to a precise geometric plan. And it's a concept that has captivated thinkers and builders across millennia. Our mission in this deep dive is to explore the deep connections between geometry, spirituality, and, well, the very structure of our reality. To guide us, we've pulled together a really rich stack of sources, everything from ancient Egyptian texts and monumental architecture, to the breathtaking artistry of Islamic patterns, the philosophical underpinnings of Freemasonry, the quiet serenity of Asian sacred spaces, and even contemporary architectural theories. Our promise to you is a shortcut to being truly well-informed, uncovering surprising facts, and maybe experiencing those genuine aha moments that reveal deeper, universal patterns in the world around you.
What's truly fascinating here, and what makes this topic so fundamentally important, I think, is the idea that geometry transcends being merely a branch of mathematics or, a tool for engineers. Our sources consistently present it as a universal language, a foundational concept that bridges our physical existence with the divine. Kind of like a cosmic DNA. Think about it. Geometry is said to influence everything from the intricate, almost unbelievable proportions found within the human body itself to the monumental scale and cosmic alignment of architectural marvels like the Great Pyramid. And this isn't a new idea, of course. Philosophers and mathematicians throughout history have pondered this very connection. Plato, for instance, famously declared, God geometrizes continually.
God geometrizes continually? Wow.
Right? And centuries later, the brilliant German mathematician Carl Friedrich Gauss offered a slight twist, stating, God arithmetizes, highlighting the numerical precision in creation. Johannes Kepler, who was so deeply engrossed in the mysteries of the cosmos, was convinced that the planets orbited according to some divine geometric scheme. He was initially obsessed with those perfect Platonic solids, the cube, tetrahedron, and so on, trying to fit the orbits into them.
Like cosmic scaffolding.
Exactly. That model didn't quite work out, but his deep geometric intuition eventually led him to discover the laws of planetary motion. It shows how fundamental geometry was to his process. And even in modern times, you have the Harvard mathematician Xing-Tong Yao saying in 2010 something like, geometry isn't just at the table with physics and cosmology. In many ways, it is the table.
Okay, geometry is the table. That really sets the stage. So if it's such a fundamental language, where do we even begin to decipher its alphabet? What are the core building blocks our sources keep pointing to?
Absolutely. Well, when we start trying to decode this language, two foundational mathematical concepts immediately jump out. They seem to echo throughout nature and ancient wisdom. Those are the golden ratio, often shown as the Greek letter phi, roughly 1.618 emeti, and its close relative, the Fibonacci sequence.
Right, Fibonacci, where each number is the sum of the two before it, like 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8.
Precisely. 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, and on it goes. And what's truly remarkable, really mind-bending, is how these seemingly abstract relationships pop up everywhere. Not just in intricate human designs, but organically in nature itself, and, maybe most strikingly, even within the human body.
Okay, I'm curious, what are some of the most compelling examples of these ratios in action that your sources highlight? Where do we see them?
Well, one example our sources consistently point to is the human finger. It's presented as an almost perfect miniature representation of the Fibonacci sequence in its proportions.
The finger, really? How so?
Yeah, if you look closely, or maybe even at an X-ray, the lengths of the three main bones, the phalanges, they often align with Fibonacci ratios, something like 2, 5, and 8, proportionally.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just coincidence, the sources argue. It suggests these fundamental patterns, the golden ratio, Fibonacci, might be inherently woven into the fabric of life itself.
Wow. From cells to us.
Right. It makes you look at your own hand differently, doesn't it? Like you're holding a tiny cosmic blueprint.
Oh.
It's almost like the universe is constantly reminding us of its underlying order. And this connection, it makes you reconsider things. Take Michelangelo's famous painting on the Sistine Chapel ceiling, God's finger reaching out to Adam.
The spark of life.
That's the usual interpretation, yeah. But some of our sources suggest the significance might be deeper. Maybe it's not just the direction of the finger, but the sacred geometric structure within the finger itself, acting as a vessel for that divine proportion.
That's a fascinating twist on such an iconic image.
It really is.
Yeah.
And to truly appreciate how deep this understanding goes, we need to go back to ancient Egypt. Their grasp of geometry wasn't just theoretical. It was applied with incredible, almost unbelievable precision. The Egyptians had this deep, practical understanding, especially with triangles for creating perfect right angles. Sources like Geraldine Woods' Science in Ancient Egypt mention they knew very early on that a triangle with sides measuring 3, 4, and 5 units.
The classic 3-4-5 triangle.
Exactly, or even 5, 12, and 13 units.
Yeah.
They always included a perfect right angle. This simple knowledge was fundamental for their huge building projects. It let them lay out incredibly precise foundations. And in fact, our sources make a pretty controversial claim here.
Oh, what's that?
They argue that Pythagoras, the famous Greek mathematician, well, that he essentially stole or perhaps appropriated this mathematical formula.
Stole Pythagoras' theorem. From who?
From an Egyptian philosopher known as Paya-Neterikit, also called Djoser or Zoser. The sources suggest Pythagoras just renamed it the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared.
Wow. That definitely reframes some history lessons. How strong is the evidence for that claim in these sources?
Well, it's not universally accepted in mainstream Egyptology, let's be clear. But the sources point to the advanced state of Egyptian math before Pythagoras. They argue that Egyptian construction simply required this kind of understanding long before the Greeks formalized it. And the Egyptians had this really sophisticated measurement system, too, tied directly to the human body.
Like the cubit.
Exactly, the cubit elbow to the tip of the middle finger. And other units like the palm width, or 4 fingers held together. Crucially, these weren't random. They were based on the body of the Offerti, the pharaoh, seen as the embodiment of divine order. And even though people's bodies differ, they standardized these using precisely crafted measuring sticks that kept the body part names. It ensured consistency across massive projects.
So how did they use the 3-4-5 triangle in practice?
Right, for those monumental tombs and temples, accurate right angles were absolutely essential. They had this brilliant method using rope. They'd mark a rope with 13 equal divisions. Then they'd form a triangle using 4 units for one side, 3 for another, and the remaining 5 for the hypotenuse.
And presto, a perfect right angle.
Precisely, a perfect 3.4.5 right triangle. Simple, incredibly effective, and precise. This method is documented as the origin of the historic courting of the temple, a fundamental building ritual. And from creating perfect right angles, it was then relatively simple for them to lay out perfect rectangles and then move on to much more complex geometric figures, building up from these profound insights.
It's amazing. From a simple rope to the pyramids. Which brings us to section 2, the grand designs. It wasn't just about building big, was it? Our sources say the real science behind the pyramids was this idea, as above, so below.
Exactly. As above, so below. The idea is that cosmic patterns, star movements, celestial order are directly mirrored in earthly structures, especially the pyramids. Building one involved incredibly precise planning. It wasn't arbitrary at all. They meticulously considered the exact location, the amount of land, its geographical distribution. And it wasn't just earthly stuff. The positioning was determined with astonishing accuracy, according to the stars, aligned with specific constellations, celestial events. Our sources even state the pyramids were built geometrically 23 degrees from the center of the Earth.
23 degrees. That's specific. So it's like aligning Earth with the heavens.
That's the idea. It's a profound connection between the terrestrial and the celestial, designed to embody cosmic harmony.
But your sources also dive into some pretty controversial theories about how they were actually built, right? Some less conventional ideas.
Indeed. And this gets into the more speculative, mysterious aspects presented in the material. There's this theory, rather oddly named, anti-destruction vs. destruction, which suggests pyramids were actually built from the top down.
Top down? How would that even work?
Well, the idea is the capstone, the very top piece, represented a reflected energy form from a sort of pyramid above. It implies a mental or energetic blueprint came first, thought preceding form.
A mental blueprint. Interesting. What else?
Well, there's also this intriguing and highly speculative claim that construction was helped by neterate beings from above. And what adds to the mystery, as the sources highlight, is the complete lack of human construction records or detailed blueprints on Egyptian walls explaining how they did it. This absence, the text says, baffles the Hyksos, who the source identifies as Canaanite, Caucasian, even to this very day. It even suggests the real secrets might be in a hidden ninth chamber.
A secret ninth chamber, okay. And there were other claims about suppressed history.
Yes, another layer the sources add is this idea of historical suppression. They point out, for instance, that there are actually more pyramids in Sudan than in northern Egypt, something often overlooked. The sources claim Europeans explored these Sudanese pyramids, found truths they didn't like, and supposedly buried them underwater to hide the knowledge.
Buried them underwater. Wow.
Yeah, and it also suggests the French repainted and altered information on Egyptian monuments to hide truths about themselves and about the history of Black people. Again, these are specific claims from the sources. But focusing on the Great Pyramid of Khufu itself, its precision is just astonishing. Its four corners are described as almost perfect right angles, an incredible feat. And the scale. Average blocks weigh 2.5 tons, some weigh 15 tons. Imagine moving those.
It's almost impossible to conceive without modern cranes. What about the math? Does it hold up to the sacred geometry claims?
Oh, absolutely. The Great Pyramid's math is astounding. Its measurements relate directly to pi 3.14159. Its original height was about 481 feet. If you divide the base perimeter by twice this height, you get 3.1428.
Which is incredibly close to pi.
Uncannily close. This sophistication impressed ancient writers like Strabo and Pliny. Interestingly, the sources mention other writers, Euhemerus, Aristagoras, Duns of Samos, who wrote about the pyramids, but their works are lost. The text hints this means that the secrets were not meant for them to record, implying knowledge was deliberately guarded.
Lost writings. Hidden knowledge. It adds to the mystique. But the Great Pyramid wasn't the very beginning, was it? The step pyramid of Djoser came first, built by Imhotep.
Precisely. That was around 2750 BC at Saqqara, built by the legendary Imhotep. It's described as a mastaba pyramid, basically a rectangular tomb with sloping sides stepped like a platform. And it was unique, never duplicated. It started smaller, maybe 215 feet long, 25 feet high, but Imhotep expanded it to about 400 by 350 feet at the base. Then he built up 6 decreasing mastabas stacked on top. The sources claim it reached 7,200 feet high, which seems extraordinarily high, perhaps a misinterpretation or exaggeration in the source text, but definitely monumental for its time.
7,200 feet, that seems huge. But the step design itself was revolutionary.
Absolutely. It had a square ground plan, similar to Babylonian ziggurats, and he was enclosed in this huge sanctuary, a double square, over 1/3 of a mile long, oriented north-south. A true masterpiece. And its influence. The sources claim this geometric pattern, the step pyramid and its court, was copied centuries later by the so-called Jews for the construction of their temples, and even used as the pattern for the Chapel Royal at Whitehall in London. So direct lineage across cultures.
From Saqqara to London.
Right. The step pyramid represents this sudden application of methods which appear to have been formerly unknown. The scale, the precision, it was a leap. The sources even flipped the really bold idea that laser was used to cut these stones.
Laser cutting, that's definitely out there. And Imhotep, the man behind it.
It's an extraordinary figure. His list of titles is amazing. Chancellor of the ruler of Lower Egypt, first after the ruler of Upper Egypt, administrator of the Great Palace, hereditary nobleman, high priest of Heliopolis, builder, sculptor, and maker of vases and chief. I mean, the list goes on. It just highlights his genius. A true pioneer of Western sacred geometry, according to these texts. After him, you see shifts. The bent pyramid, for instance, built differently. These later pyramids are sometimes interpreted as representing the celestial spectacle of the sun's rays breaking through the clouds, a manifestation of the divine power of Ra.
A change in symbolism, perhaps.
Possibly. And this transition to the pure form pyramid seems linked to the rise of the priests of Anu or Heliopolis. Their influence brought a new emphasis on the sacred geometry. The true mirror pyramid, the techno obelisk, and the ben-ben, that sacred pillar representing the primeval man of creation. Following the bent pyramid, the northern stone pyramid was built nearby, using a lower angle of 43 degrees 30 minutes, just like the upper half of the bent pyramid. It's about 332 feet high. And then finally, the big one, Khufu's Great Pyramid, the largest single structure ever built by humans. The sources insist its magnitude cannot be duplicated, and it was not just a tomb, it had a grander purpose. Geometrically, it's unique. It represents the mystic squaring of the circle.
Squaring the circle, how?
Its height relates to its circumference, in the same ratio as a circle's radius relates to its circumference. That's 1 divided by 2 pi, and it's accurate to better than 0.1% error. The angles also show simple whole number ratios, a key part of sacred geometry. 51 degrees 52 minutes comes from a 4.1 gradient, 43 degrees 30 minutes from a 3.1 slope, like at Dashur. It really seems to confirm that architecture began with geometry, and Egypt was the first systematic application. There's also this compelling theory that the pyramid faces represent the northern hemisphere on a square projection, each flat face representing a curved fourth of the hemisphere. The Great Pyramid fulfills this perfectly. The base and height relationships mathematically project the sphere onto the triangle, inherently giving that pi relationship. incredibly sophisticated.
It's mind-blowing. Structures encoded with cosmic information. So what does this all mean beyond Egypt? These principles clearly spread. How do they manifest elsewhere?
Exactly. These profound ideas didn't stay confined to Egypt. They extended globally, influencing art and architecture across cultures. It really shows geometry's universal appeal.
Like in Islamic art, those intricate patterns seem like a perfect example.
Absolutely perfect. Islamic geometric patterns are breathtaking and deeply philosophical. Many designs start with simple squares and circles, but then they're repeated, overlapped, interlaced into incredibly complex forms. You often see the 8-pointed star that's 2 squares, one rotated 45 degrees. Simple, yet powerful. They also use pentagons, octagons, combining them with reflections, rotations, creating stunning symmetries. What's amazing is their mathematical tessellations they can extend infinitely, suggesting the infinite nature of the divine.
Wow, infinity in tile work.
Right. And here's the kicker. Traditionally constructed using just a ruler and compass. Simple tools, complex results. It led artist Roman Verosco to argue they're forerunners of modern algorithmic art, centuries ahead of computers.
Incredible. Linking ancient art to modern algorithms. But was there a deeper meaning than just beauty?
Oh, definitely. It wasn't just ornamentation. The purpose was transfiguration, transforming mosques into lightness and pattern, dissolving solid walls into geometry, or making Quran pages into windows onto the infinite. It elevates the material, reflecting the emphasis on abstract beauty in Islamic tradition, often avoiding figural imagery in religious contexts. You see it everywhere. Ceramics with radial flowers, Giri strapwork like woven ribbons, jolly, those pierced stone screens in India, like at the Taj Mahal.
Jolly screens, right. They create amazing light effects.
Exactly. They feature 5 and 8-pointed stars, emphasizing symmetry, infinity. They function as windows, dividers, but also as pure beauty. Even modern architects adapt the idea. Then you have kilim rugs with geometric motifs, often symbolic like the wolf's mouth for protection. Muqarnas, those incredible carved ceilings and domes like 3D honeycombs found from Spain to Persia. Shakaba stained glass with geometric stars seen in Azerbaijan, Iran, Yemen, and zelis tiling in Morocco and Spain. Colorful hand-cut mosaics forming dazzling patterns.
The variety is amazing. Are there major collections where you can see these?
Oh, yes. The Victoria and Albert Museum in London has hundreds of objects, wood panels, silks, wallpaper. The Met in New York has impressive medieval pieces, like huge minbar doors, even a whole mihrab prayer niche from Isfahan weighing thousands of kilos. These collections really show the global impact and artistry of Islamic geometric design, how geometry manifests so richly.
Truly incredible diversity from shared principles. So, if it's a universal language, how did it translate into Eastern philosophies and design? Geometry seems to be a form of communication in Asian sacred spaces, too, aligning human life with the cosmos.
Precisely. In Asia, geometry isn't just visual balance. It's deeply linked to spiritual significance, mirroring the perceived order of the universe. This connection is ancient. They recognize physical spaces could influence spiritual experiences. This alignment came through meticulous geometry, proportions, even choosing materials like granite or marble for their supposed strong energetic properties.
Energetic properties in stone.
That was the belief, yes, enhancing the spiritual energy of the space. And think about mandalas. They're described as cosmic diagrams, spiritual tools, rooted in mathematical precision. When applied to architecture, the mandala becomes a 3D blueprint for embodying cosmic principles. The prime example is Borobudur Temple in Indonesia, 9th century. It's a massive 3D mandala.
Borobudur. I've seen pictures. It's stunning.
It's designed as a journey. You ascend its levels, moving symbolically from the earthly realm at the base, through forms to formless enlightenment at the top. The journey is in the geometry.
A physical pilgrimage mirroring an inner one.
Exactly. And this isn't just temples. Feng Shui principles using geometry and orientation were applied in places like the Forbidden City in China. It's laid out as a massive rectangle. The most important buildings are on a central axis. The Hall of Supreme Harmony, the Emperor's main throne room, is right at the midpoint, the epicenter. This was deliberate. It was meant to ceremonially transform the Emperor into the center of the universe when he was there, linking earthly power to cosmic order through pure geometry.
Amazing. From temples to imperial palaces, geometry defines the sacred center. So let's shift again to the more symbolic, even esoteric layers. How is sacred geometry found in things like Freemasonry or even human proportion? It really seems embedded everywhere.
It does. And the 5-pointed star, the pentagram, is a key ancient symbol in Freemasonry, often said to represent Sirius, the brightest star. But its geometric connection, specifically to the golden ratio, is profound. If you look at a pentagram within a pentagon, The way the lines intersect creates segments that follow the golden ratio A is to B as B is to C. And if you draw another pentagram inside, it continues infinitely, a reminder of the underlying order, the powers and properties of magnitudes.
The golden ratio hidden in the star.
Exactly. And with this, the sources suggest the U.S. founding fathers had good and specific reasons for choosing the five-pointed star. They intended to bind the nation to this basic ratio of nature, connecting it to the divine.
That's a powerful symbolic claim. What about the letter G, often seen in Masonry?
Right. Historically, the five-pointed star was often where the G is now placed on Masonic aprons in the U.S. Robert Burns' 1791 apron is cited as showing the G within a pentagram. The G itself has multiple meanings. In Hebrew, it connects to Gadol or Gadole, meaning great. Also, potentially to Gibbon or Gibor from Genesis 6.4, referring to mighty men or giants Nephilim. Though these interpretations in the source delve into some very complex and, frankly, fringe theories about ancient lineages, what's clear is Gabor, meaning strong, is important in high degrees. And G, being the seventh letter, ties into the mystical number of religion.
Layers upon layers of meaning. You mentioned Sirius earlier, too, in relation to the pentagram.
Yes, and this is where it gets really mind-bending, geometrically. Sirius is a binary system, Sirius A and the dense white dwarf Sirius B. Because Sirius B is so massive, they orbit each other in a complex way. As they travel through space, their path weaves back and forth, creating a helical pattern. And this helical path, according to the sources, looks very similar to the geometric pattern seen in human DNA.
Wow, the dance of stars mirroring our own DNA structure.
It's a profound parallel, isn't it? Macrocosm and microcosm, linked by geometry. And maybe the best encapsulation of this is Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. We know it for perfect proportion, but the sources call it a sacred key to sacred geometry itself. Da Vinci didn't just use the square and circle. He incorporated the triangle, golden rectangles, and the hexagram, the Seal of Solomon, all into it.
The hexagram, the six-pointed star, what does that signify?
Multiple things. Two overlaid triangles, one up, one down, representing as above, so below. The unity of spirit and matter. As interlinked triangles, it's the Seal of Solomon, maybe the intersection of the Tree of Life and Tree of Knowledge. An alternative view sees it as the interplay of positive and negative, light and dark, dynamic balance.
And the Tree of Life itself.
That's another key geometric shape, driving its proportions from the golden ratio. It's fundamental to Kabbalah. Its structure, the 10 separate, clearly shows the golden rectangle and ratio. Kabbalists used it to model all reality, a map of creation, showing how these geometric principles pervade everything.
It's fascinating how these threads run through so many systems. Even Christian cathedrals in Europe use geometry, often the Latin cross floor plan, to express the divine mathematically, like stone prayers.
That's right, especially in the Middle Ages. Thinkers used microcosm analogies humans reflect in the cosmos. Hildegard of Bingen described visions of a human figure, Christ or mankind, within a universal orb with God above. This likely inspired Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man later, and Dante, in the Divine Comedy, used concentric circles for the 9 layers of hell and paradise, creating this precise cosmic order from earth to heaven, possibly inspired by Ptolemy's astronomy.
Linking classical science and spiritual narrative.
Exactly. Then the Renaissance shifted towards simple, perfect geometries. The circle became huge, symbolizing nature's perfection and man's central place. Architects like Alberti codified this in treatises on the ideal church, emphasizing harmony, proportion, mathematical beauty reflecting God's creation. Brunelleschi, Bramante, they built these ideals into their structures.
So, bringing this amazing journey towards the present, how does this ancient wisdom survive in the modern era of steel and glass? What happens when a 20th century architect tries to bring these human-centric ideas back?
That architect was the visionary Le Corbusier. He developed the modular system. He wanted it to be a human proportion system, a language of proportions that makes the bad hard and the good easy. Einstein apparently liked that idea.
Makes the bad hard and the good easy. I like that.
Yeah. Le Corbusier was inspired by the ancient Greeks, Egyptians who used body measurements, corporeality, like the cubit or foot, before the metric system took over. He felt we'd lost that intuitive human connection to measurement and wanted to bring it back into architecture, scaling buildings to the body. In his 1923 book, Virtue Architecture, he wrote, "Geometry is the language of man," arguing things like the golden ratio are at the root of human activity, deeply ingrained in how we perceive harmony.
So how did the modular system work?
It cleverly combined human body measurements with both the foot-based system and the metric system, bridging the old and new. It was based on 2 tools of mathematics, the subtle effect of the golden ratio and the functional level of the human body. He developed 2 main modular heights, 1.75 meters initially, then later 1.829 meters, which is exactly 6 English feet, a common male height. Both were linked to Fibonacci numbers, creating a natural progression.
So a scale based on human height and Fibonacci?
Exactly. He then elaborated this into rows of measurements, harmonic scales derived from the body, and the golden ratio. The red row started from the 6-foot height, 1.83 meters. It produced measurements like 113, 70, 43, 27 centimeters by scaling up or down using the golden ratio, or derived from a belly button height of 113 centimeters. But he found these steps were maybe too large for daily use in detailing.
So he needed a finer scale.
Right, so he created the blue row, starting from 2.26 meters, the height of the modular figure's raised fingertips. Dividing this using the Fibonacci rule gave finer steps to 226, 140, 86, 43 centimeters, and so on. And fascinatingly, Le Corbusier believed each height corresponds to a human emotion ideally at this height.
Emotion tied to height, how so?
He suggested specific heights were ideal for certain things, like a stool at 267 millimeters for relaxation, a chair at 432 millimeters for comfort, a room height of 2,260 millimeters feeling perfectly scaled to us. It was this ambitious attempt to infuse human proportion, even emotion, into the dimensions of our modern spaces, bringing sacred geometry home, literally.
What an incredible journey we've been on. We've really covered some ground. From the basic building blocks, the golden ratio, Fibonacci, and seeing them in ancient Egyptian wisdom, their practical genius in pyramid building and measurement, we explored the pyramids themselves, their sheer scale.